I don't know what I expected when Jalen invited me to her office party in Lincoln. Honestly, I almost didn't go. We'd been off for a while, not fighting exactly, but distant. It was the kind of distance that creeps up slowly, like your phone slipping between the couch cushions. One day you reach for it, and it's just not there anymore. Still, I told myself it was a good sign that she wanted me there. Maybe things were turning around. Maybe she missed me. Maybe we'd reconnect, or at least pretend to for the sake of the open bar and catered finger foods. We arrived separately. She said she had to help with setup, which made sense, I guess. Jalen always liked being the one in control of the vibe. She texted me the address. A trendy rooftop space in downtown Lincoln, rented out by her firm, and I showed up an hour after it started, just like she asked. The moment I walked in, I felt like an outsider. Not because anyone was rude, but because everyone already seemed to know the script. Inside jokes flying like darts, people dressed like they were auditioning for The Bachelor, and music loud enough to keep real conversations optional. It wasn't my scene, hadn't been for years, but I smiled and made the rounds. I wasn't here for them. I was here for her. Took me about 15 minutes to spot her. Not because she was hard to find, but because my brain didn't register what I was seeing at first. Jalen was over by the bar, wearing a short maroon dress I'd never seen before, tight in ways she used to avoid when I was around. She was standing close to a guy. Not close like co-workers at a holiday party. Close like, well, like something else. Too close. Then she leaned in, wrapping her arms fully around him. Her whole body. Both arms, chest pressed to his, her chin resting briefly on his shoulder. It lasted maybe 2 seconds longer than it needed to, just long enough to feel real. I stood there, frozen in place, trying to figure out if anyone else was seeing what I was. A few people glanced over, then quickly looked away, like they didn't want to be caught watching something private. That's what made it worse. They knew. Or at least they knew enough to know I wasn't supposed to be seeing it. She laughed after the hug, her hand resting on his arm, fingers grazing just a little too long. He smiled down at her like they were sharing a secret, like this wasn't the first time. Then she saw me. Our eyes met from across the room. She blinked, her smile faltered for half a heartbeat, then snapped right back into place. She said something to him. I couldn't hear it, and then made her way over to me, wine glass in hand like this was all just a normal night. Hey, you made it, she said, voice light, like nothing had happened. I didn't answer. She followed my gaze, back to the guy who was now talking to someone else, and then turned back to me. Her expression didn't change. Oh, she said, as if just realizing what I might have seen. That was just part of the game. Secret Santa. You know how it goes. Someone pulls a dare card, gets silly. It's nothing. Her eyes didn't flinch when she said it. Her tone didn't wobble. If I didn't know her, I might have believed it. But I did know her. Or I used to. The way she said, just a joke, made something in me go cold. Not because she was lying, I didn't even need confirmation of that, but because of how easy it was for her. How quickly she pivoted. How ready she was with the cover story. I nodded. Just once. Then, slowly, I reached down, slid my wedding ring off, and dropped it into my pocket. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and just didn't want to react. Either way, she gave me a quick smile, more polite than warm, and said, "Come on. I'll introduce you to some people." I didn't move. She hesitated. "Babe, I'm good," I said, keeping my voice neutral. Her smile flickered again. "All right, I'll be over there if you need me." And just like that, she turned and walked away, back into the party, back into the noise and the lights and the life she was clearly living without me. I spent the rest of the evening like a ghost. I stayed, but I wasn't there. Just floated from corner to corner, sipping whatever they handed me, exchanging forgettable pleasantries with people who probably thought I was her brother, or maybe her ex. Nobody asked. Nobody wanted to know. The guy she hugged? His name, I'd later learn, was Nathan. I didn't approach him that night. Didn't start anything. I wasn't about to cause a scene. Jalen had already made hers. Instead, I left quietly when the night started to wind down. Slipped out without a word. Didn't wait for her to come find me. Didn't leave a note. Just walked into the cold Nebraska night, my hands in my coat pockets, fingers wrapped around the ring I no longer wanted to wear. That was the moment everything ended between us. Jalen didn't know it yet. She probably thought I'd sulk for a few days, stew in silence, and then fall back into the routine. That's what I always did. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Assumed the best. Let things go because I didn't want to be the guy who made drama out of nothing. But this time was different. Not because of the hug. Not even because of Nathan. It was the lie, the casual ease of it. The insult of pretending I hadn't seen what I saw. For the rest of that night I drove. No destination. Just the hum of tires on frozen asphalt. Radio turned low. Thoughts turned loud. The Midwest passed in headlights and gas stations and long stretches of nothing. The kind of roads where you're alone for miles, and it feels like the whole world shrunk to just you and the ache you're trying to ignore. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat in it. Sat in the feeling of something dying that I wasn't sure had ever been fully alive. Jalen and I had been married 5 years. We met in college sophomore year, business ethics class. She sat behind me and made sarcastic comments under her breath. I laughed when I wasn't supposed to. We hit it off fast. Lived together by graduation. Married 2 years later. Bought a house. Got a dog. Did everything you're supposed to do when you're building a life with someone. But somewhere along the way it turned mechanical. Predictable. I chalked it up to the usual grind. Long work hours, responsibilities, not enough time for each other. I thought we were just in a rough patch. Turns out I was in a patch. She was in something else. By the time I got home that night it was past 2 a.m. The house was dark. Jalen wasn't back yet. Or maybe she was and left again. Either way, the silence inside felt final. Like a door had closed and wasn't opening again. I went upstairs, sat on the edge of the bed, and pulled the ring from my pocket. I held it in my palm for a long time, turning it under the glow of the nightstand lamp. It didn't look like anything special. Just a plain silver band. Worn smooth from 5 years of doing dishes, carrying groceries, adjusting mirrors, and brushing against hers when our hands found each other in sleep. It used to mean everything. Now it felt like a receipt for a purchase I regretted. I set it on the table, laid back, and stared at the ceiling. No music, no TV, just me, the dog snoring at the foot of the bed, and the sound of something unraveling quietly in the dark. Jalen came home sometime before sunrise. I heard the front door creak open, heard her heels click softly on the hardwood, heard her pause at the bottom of the stairs, like she was deciding whether to come up. She didn't. The next sound was the fridge opening, a bottle cap popping, and then nothing. She didn't ask where I was, and I didn't care. That night I didn't sleep, not even a little. I just lay there in the dark, eyes wide open, staring up at the ceiling like it held answers. Didn't. But my brain wouldn't stop cycling through every moment I had brushed off, every little warning sign I'd chosen to ignore, every, nah, I'm probably overthinking it. That should have been a red flag. Funny how your memory works when you finally stop lying to yourself. It doesn't just rewind, it plays in HD with commentary. I kept thinking back to when Jalen started working late. It had been subtle at first, just an extra hour here and there, then more frequent. Always with some vague explanation. We're behind on the rebrand. Q3 numbers need a deep dive. Nathan's being a perfectionist again. That last one should have hit harder than it did. She never came home sweaty or guilty or overly cheerful. That would have been too obvious. No, Jalen came home tired, mentally exhausted. She'd toss her keys in the bowl by the door, rub her temples, and go straight for the shower. No kiss hello. No small talk. Just the sound of hot water hitting tile while I sat downstairs, microwaving leftovers and telling myself it was just work stress. Then there were the arguments. Stupid ones. Out of nowhere. She'd snap over me forgetting to buy oat milk. Or she'd act cold if I left a towel on the bathroom floor. Something she used to laugh about. But it wasn't about the towel. It never was. I just didn't get it at the time. It was like she needed to be angry. Like starting a fight gave her permission to pull away. Like being mad made her feel justified for something she hadn't told me yet. Her phone habits had changed, too. Once upon a time, her phone would buzz, and she'd casually check it, even read messages out loud to me. We shared dumb memes, scrolled side by side. Nothing was secret. But lately, it was always face down, always on silent, always just out of reach. I'd ask who she was texting, and she'd shrug. Just group chat stuff. Work. Nobody. Then she'd pivot, ask me something random to change the subject. At some point, I stopped asking. Not because I trusted her more, but because I didn't want to hear the lie. It was easier to pretend it didn't mean anything. I remember the first time I noticed the perfume. It was maybe 2 months before the party. We were headed to dinner, one of those awkward, obligatory date nights where we dressed up but didn't talk. She came downstairs wearing a scent I didn't recognize. Not overly strong, but different. Floral, kind of musky. Not her usual. "What's that?" I asked, genuinely curious. She smiled. "Oh, just a sample. From a client. You like it?" "It's nice," I said. She wore it again the next weekend. And the weekend after that. Then she started spraying it before yoga class. I should have known right then. Jalen hadn't gone to yoga in over a year. But I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe there was still an us worth protecting. Looking back, I think that was the most painful part. Not the betrayal itself, but the way I helped cover it up by refusing to look closer. There was a time early in our relationship when she'd fall asleep on my chest. Every night, like clockwork. Her breathing would slow, her fingers would curl into my shirt, and I'd stay still just to feel needed. That faded over time. I chalked it up to life, to schedules, to age. But the truth was, she'd stopped falling asleep with me long before she stopped sleeping beside me. The int asterisk Macy died in slow motion. Not just physically, but in the tiny things. No more hand on my knee during car rides. No more brushing against me when she walked by. No more leaning in during movies. Her side of the bed grew colder, not because she wasn't warm, but because she wasn't reaching anymore. I remembered one morning, just a few weeks ago, when she was brushing her teeth and humming. She used to hum a lot, especially when she was in a good mood. But that day, I caught something weird. The tune was unfamiliar. Not something she usually listened to. "What song is that?" I asked. She paused. "Oh, just something Nathan played in the car the other day. Got stuck in my head." That was the first time I heard his name slip into a casual sentence. Nathan, her coworker, her work husband, as she jokingly called him once in front of friends. I'd laughed along. But now I remembered the way she said it, the way her voice had dipped just slightly, her smile a bit too wide. I remembered the way he texted her during dinner that same night, and how she angled the screen away before replying. It all came rushing back. The cracks had always been there. I just didn't want to believe she'd dropped the match. But she did. That hug at the party wasn't the spark. It was the smoke after the fire, the moment I realized the house had already burned down. And the worst part? She still hadn't told me. She walked in sometime after 3 a.m. quietly, as if sneaking back into a version of her life that still worked. I stayed still, eyes shut, breathing steady, pretending to be asleep. She moved slowly, didn't turn on a single light, didn't come up the stairs, just went straight to the couch. I listened to the soft thud of her bag hitting the floor, the gentle creak of the leather as she sank into it. Then silence. Not even a whisper. She didn't check on me, didn't kiss me goodnight, didn't even sigh loud enough to be heard. And I didn't go to her. I didn't want her to explain anymore. I didn't want to hear whatever twisted version of the truth she thought I could tolerate. I wanted to sit with the reality I'd ignored for too long. Let it wrap around me like fog. Morning came, but I didn't move. Just laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, watching the shadows shift with the rising sun. I heard the coffee machine beep downstairs. Heard her walk around, lightly, like she was trying not to wake me. Or maybe like she didn't care if she did. She left for work without saying a word. She didn't even close the door all the way. I got up eventually, stumbled into the kitchen. My coffee mug, the one she bought me years ago that said "World's Okayest Husband," was still there, untouched. I looked at it for a long time, then put it in the cabinet like it was evidence. Everything felt too quiet, too staged, like I was living in a museum of our marriage. Every object frozen in time, waiting for someone to care again. Around noon, I sat on the back porch with my laptop and started pulling up old texts. Searching her name, Nathan's, any phrase that might mean something now that I was seeing clearly. And sure enough, it was all there. Not in what was said, but what wasn't. Conversations that ended mid-thought. Mismatched explanations. Disappearing read receipts. Texts sent at odd hours. Her sudden obsession with privacy settings. Her refusal to use my laptop when hers was acting up. I remembered a time she asked me, out of nowhere, "Do you think people can cheat emotionally?" I said yes. She nodded. Good answer. Then she kissed me. But looking back, it felt more like a test than a moment. Everything made sense now. The small things I dismissed as stress. The weird shift in her playlists. The sudden interest in new wines. Her random mood swings. Her Sunday morning errands that took 3 hours. It was all preparation for escape. And I had been the passenger, buckled in, blindfolded, quietly humming along to a song I didn't recognize. When you start seeing the truth, it doesn't come like a wave. It comes like 1,000 tiny needles, all pricking you at once. And suddenly, you realize you've been bleeding for months. I didn't know what came next, but I knew what came before was over. The day after the party, I stayed home from work. I told my boss I wasn't feeling well, and technically it wasn't a lie. My chest ached like someone had set up camp on it, and no matter how deep I breathed, the air didn't feel full. I didn't eat, didn't shower, didn't even turn on the lights. I just sat on the couch, phone in hand, staring at our wedding photo on the wall across from me like it might change if I looked at it long enough. Jalen had left early that morning. I didn't see her. I just heard the car pull out of the driveway. No note, no text. No "I love you" shouted from the stairs. I didn't expect one. I was half scrolling through old texts when a notification popped up. A message request on Facebook. It was from a name I hadn't seen in over a year. Alexa Monroe. Jalen's ex-friend. That alone made me sit up. Alexa used to be part of Jalen's inner circle. They'd known each other since college, rode through bad breakups together, even got matching tattoos. Then, about a year ago, they just stopped speaking. Jalen told me it was just drama. Something about Alexa being too negative or jealous. I didn't push it. Friendships fall apart sometimes, especially in your 30s. But now she was messaging me? Out of the blue? The preview line said, "I know this is random, but I need to tell you something." I opened it. "Hey Tom. I debated sending this 100 times. I know we don't talk, and I'm probably the last person you ever expected to hear from, but I can't stay quiet anymore. You don't deserve this." My heart started pounding. She kept typing. The 3 dots blinked like a heartbeat. I know about Jalen and Nathan. I know everything. I've known for months, but she cut me out when I confronted her. I thought maybe she'd come clean eventually, but seeing that party video last night, no, I'm not going to be silent. There was an attachment. Several, actually. I hesitated before opening them. My hand hovered above the screen like maybe the weight of my hesitation could undo what was already happening. But I tapped anyway. The first one was a **T, a text thread between Jalen and Alexa, dated 2 months ago. "Jalen, if you're going to judge me, then just stop texting. I'm not interested in moral lectures." "Alexa, I'm not judging. I'm asking if you're happy ruining your marriage for a guy who flirts with the receptionist." "Jalen, Tom and I were over before this. He just doesn't realize it yet." The next was a photo. Jalen in a swimsuit I didn't recognize, a red one-piece with an open back. She was perched on Nathan's lap, poolside, holding a drink, legs draped over his. His arms were around her waist like it was the most natural thing in the world. The timestamp? That was the weekend she told me she was at a yoga retreat in Denver. I sat there, the room spinning slowly around me, my stomach tightening into knots. My hands started shaking, not from rage. Not yet. but from that kind of dread that crawls up your spine when you realize your reality isn't real anymore. Another attachment. A video. I hit play. Jalen's voice, laughing off camera. Tom still thinks I'm at yoga. That's cute. Then a splash and her giggle again. The camera turned just enough to catch her slipping into the pool. Nathan watching from a lounge chair with a stupid grin on his face. The video ended with her flipping off the camera jokingly and yelling, "Send this to Alexa, so she knows I'm fine." My jaw clenched. Fine? She was fine while I was at home, folding laundry and texting her goodnight. She was fine while I lit a candle in the bedroom so it would smell nice when she got back. She was fine while lying to my face every day since. Alexa messaged again. "I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. I thought she'd grow out of it or feel guilty or something. But she doesn't. She's not scared you'll find out. She's just convinced you won't leave." I didn't respond. Not to Alexa. Not to anyone. Instead, I stood up, walked into the kitchen, and opened the trash drawer. Pulled out the red candle from Denver. I stared at it, remembered the day I picked it out. Scented with cedar and sandalwood. She used to say it reminded her of safe places. Then I dropped it in the trash without a word. I walked back to the couch and opened my phone again. Scrolled to Jalen's contact. Typed one word. Call. She didn't reply. Not right away. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then 20. At minute 23, she texted, "Can't talk. Meeting. Everything okay?" I stared at that screen for a long time. Everything okay. It felt like someone asking if your house was fine after it already burned to the ground. I didn't reply. I just powered off my phone. Then I stood up, grabbed a duffel bag, and started packing. I didn't even know where I was going yet. I just knew I couldn't stay here. Not in this house, not in this lie. Not one more second. Jeans. Hoodie. Chargers. Toothbrush. Dog leash. One photo, the only one of my parents and me before they passed. The rest? Useless. By the time I hit the road, it was dark. No traffic. Just headlights and guilt in my rearview mirror. I drove 3 hours to Kansas City. Rented a cheap extended stay hotel under my middle name. Paid cash. Left my phone off. Bought a burner at a gas station. Jalen didn't know where I was. That was the point. The next morning, the messages started. The new phone buzzed with a forwarded voicemail from my sister. Played it. Jalen's voice, shaking, but not broken. Yet, "Tom, what's going on? I came home and your stuff is gone. You didn't say anything. You can't just leave like this. Please call me." I listened to it twice. Not because I missed her voice, I didn't, but because I was trying to figure out when exactly she had learned how to sound upset on command. Because here's the thing, she left first. Not with her feet, but with her heart. She checked out long before I packed a bag. I didn't owe her a warning, and suddenly I felt calm. It was like the eye of the storm had passed, and all that was left was the decision to survive. Later that day, her brother, Todd, messaged me. "Dude, she came crying to Mom's. What the hell happened?" I didn't reply to him either. What was I going to say? "Hey, your sister emotionally nuked our marriage for a guy who thinks Axe body spray counts as personality? Yeah, no thanks." I wasn't going to explain myself to anyone. Let her do that. Let her build the narrative. Let her spin the story however she needed to sleep at night. Because the truth already found me. From the last person I ever expected. And the truth doesn't need to shout. It just waits. Patient. Quiet. Inevitable. I spent the next 2 days in a hotel room that smelled like bleach and old carpet. The walls were a soft beige, the kind you only see in places that don't want you to stay too long. The bed was stiff. The lighting was bad. And yet, I slept better there than I had in months. There was something strangely peaceful about being unreachable. I didn't check email. Didn't scroll. Didn't post. I didn't even open my laptop. The burner phone sat on the nightstand, face down. The real one was powered off in my bag, like a relic from a life I wasn't part of anymore. Jalen didn't know where I was, and that bothered her more than I expected. By the end of the first day, the calls started coming in. At first, they came spaced out, calm, measured. like she thought I was just cooling off. Tom, please call me. Just let me know you're safe. By that night, she sent 6 more. Her tone shifted. I don't know what this is supposed to prove. I'm trying to talk to you like an adult. Then came the voice message. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to her voice break in and out between shaky breaths. You can't just leave like this without saying anything. I came home and your stuff's gone. I don't know what you're doing. Just, please talk to me. That was the moment I realized something. Jalen wasn't scared I was hurt. She was scared I was done. This was the first time I didn't chase her. Didn't try to decode the silence. Didn't fill in the blanks with benefit of the doubt. I just left, and it rattled her. I had always been the guy who stayed calm, who tried to see both sides, who forgave before an apology ever came. I kept the peace even when it cost me parts of myself. But not this time. This time I had taken my voice, my presence, and my forgiveness off the table, and she didn't know how to function without them. On the morning of day 3, I finally picked up a call. Not from Jalen, from Madison, my sister. She didn't say hello, just opened with, "Okay. What the hell is going on?" I didn't speak. "You vanished," she went on. "She showed up at my house yesterday looking like she just got hit by a truck, crying, begging. Said you ran off and that she doesn't know why. Do you want to explain or should I guess?" I sighed, my hand running through my hair. "You don't want the whole story." "I do." So I gave it to her. Everything. The hug, the lies, the texts from Alexa, the photos, the video, the poolside confession, the fake work trips, the yoga retreat that was actually Nathan's hotel bed. I told Madison everything. And when I was done, she didn't speak for a full 30 seconds. Then, "She really said you'd never leave?" "Yeah." Another pause. "I'm gonna K*LL her. Please don't." No promises. We sat in silence for a bit. The kind of silence you only get with family, where nothing needs to be explained any further. "I froze the accounts," I said. "Joint cards, shared savings, everything." She let out a low whistle. "You're serious?" "I am." Madison didn't say, "I'm proud of you." She just said, "Let me know if you need a place to land. You've got my key." It's funny. For months, I'd been surrounded by people. At work, at home, at parties. And yet I'd never felt more isolated. But one phone call with my sister, and I felt grounded again. Like I hadn't lost everything. Just the one person who had convinced me she was everything. Later that afternoon, I walked into a local bank branch and opened a new account, all in my name. Set up new passwords, rerouted my paycheck, locked everything behind 2-factor authentication. Jalen might still be clinging to the story she told herself, but she wouldn't be spending my money to do it. Afterward, I grabbed a sandwich from a place down the block and sat in my car eating it in silence. Felt weird, this life of independence. Unfamiliar, but not bad, just quiet. I realized I hadn't missed her voice all day. Around 5 p.m. the burner buzzed again. A new voicemail. "Jalen." I hesitated, then pressed play. "Tom, I'm not even mad. I don't understand. You're being so cruel. This isn't like you." I nearly laughed. Cruel? Cruel was what she did to our marriage. One lie at a time. Cruel was holding someone in your arms while mocking your husband behind his back. Cruel was giving someone else your trust, your touch, your time, and leaving your partner with scraps and excuses. All I had done was step away from the wreckage. And for the first time, she was the one stuck staring at the flames. By that night, she'd moved on to messaging my friends. Jason texted me, "Yo, Jalen just asked if I've heard from you. You good?" Erica DM'd me, "I think Jalen's panicking. She's asking if we know where you went." I didn't reply. She was making rounds. Fishing. Not because she missed me. Not because she wanted to make things right. She wanted control back. She was used to being one step ahead. Used to knowing how I'd react. Used to pulling the strings and counting on me to stay put. But now I was a blank space, and she couldn't handle that. The next morning, Madison texted again. Heads up. She told Mom she thinks you snapped because of work stress. Of course she did. The rewriting had big asterisk N. She couldn't admit to herself that she was the reason I left. That I didn't storm out in a rage. I walked out. Silent. Still. Done. No yelling. No threats. No scene. Just a door closing behind me. That's what scared her most. Not my anger. My indifference. I knew Jalen well enough to predict what would come next. She'd cry to friends. Say I ghosted her. Say I overreacted. Maybe even say Alexa was lying. She'd leave out the screensh asterisk ts. The pool photo. The late night messages. She'd turn it into a story where she was the one left behind, blindsided by a husband too cold to talk it through. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. I didn't need to post proof. I didn't need to defend myself. Because I knew the truth. And soon so would everyone else. People don't stay quiet forever when they've been used. They talk. They share. They connect dots. And I had a feeling Jalen's version of the story wouldn't survive the light. That night I went for a walk. It was cold, mid-January in Kansas City always is, but I needed air. I wandered past strip malls and gas stations, apartment buildings and parking lots, and I realized something. I wasn't thinking about her. Not the real her. Not the one I married. I was thinking about who she had become, and who I had been forced to become just to survive her silence. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped speaking up. I stopped saying, I miss you, or this hurts, or what's going on, because I didn't want to deal with the blank stares, the dismissive sighs, the conversations that never went anywhere. So I shut down, and she took that as a green light to build a life outside of us. But now I had silence on my own terms, not because I was scared, but because I was finally free. When I got back to the hotel, I sat down at the little desk by the window, opened the burner, and typed one sentence. Not to her, to myself. You disappeared to be found by yourself. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. By day 5, the silence started working against her. Not mine, hers. People were asking questions now, and for the first time, she didn't have the answers lined up. Jalen was a storyteller by nature, marketing background, trained in spin, but even the best storytellers unravel when they lose control of the narrative. And that's exactly what was happening. I didn't tell anyone what she did. I didn't make a Facebook post. Didn't drop receipts in the group chat. Didn't text her family with proof or start some war online. But word gets around. It always does. Especially when you don't show up to things. Especially when people notice someone else is showing up in your place. Someone who looks a little too familiar with your wife's schedule. At first, she tried to cover it with charm. She told a few mutual friends that I was dealing with some personal stuff, that I'd gone off the grid. She made it sound like I was unstable, as if I just snapped one day and vanished. She even told someone, and this made its way back to me, that I might be in crisis. The audacity. I was in crisis, all right. One she created. One she lit and walked away from, humming. But here's the thing about trying to paint yourself as the victim in a story that you wrote. Eventually, the plot holes catch up. I started getting messages. Not from her, but from people in her circle. People I barely knew. One guy, Chris, someone I'd met once at a holiday party, messaged me on Instagram. Hey man, I don't want to overstep, but I've known Jalen a long time. She told me you left her out of nowhere. Said you were working with Alexa to sabotage her career. Honestly, it sounded weird. Are you okay? That message hit harder than I expected. Not because I was surprised Jalen rewriting reality was her signature move, but because of how casually she tried to fold Alexa into the mess. The same friend she ghosted. The same woman she swore was toxic. Now she was part of the conspiracy theory. Jalen was building a new story. And in that story I was unstable. Alexa was vengeful. Nathan was just a friend. And the affair, the one documented in photos, texts, and video, didn't exist. It was the kind of plot you could only get away with if no one asked questions. But people were asking. And not just friends. Family too. I got a text from her cousin Lauren, who I hadn't seen in years. She said, "Hi Tom. I know things are complicated, but Jalen told us you disappeared without a word. I just want to hear your side before I jump to any conclusions. I always thought you were a good guy. That line stuck with me. Before I jump to any conclusions. It meant people were already starting to, and not in her favor. I didn't respond to most messages. I wasn't interested in correcting her fiction. I wasn't trying to clear my name in a PR war. Because the truth is, I didn't need to. I was already living it. Jalen was the one performing. I heard she showed up at Madison's house 2 days after I left. Full performance mode. Eyes red. Voice shaking. She asked if I was there. Claimed she just wanted to talk. Said she didn't know what she'd done wrong. Madison told her to cut the act. She offered Jalen tea, sat her down, and asked, calmly, "Do you want to tell me the truth, or should I?" Jalen blinked. "What are you talking about?" Madison folded her arms. "The Denver trip. The photos. The guy at your office party. The hug you called a joke." Jalen went pale. She tried to recover. Said, "It wasn't what it looked like. Tom always twists things." And that's when Madison, bless her, stood up and said the conversation was over. But before Jalen could leave, she slipped up. She muttered, under her breath, just loud enough, "I thought he'd just swallow it like always." Madison said that was the moment everything clicked. She'd always had doubts about Jalen. Always noticed the power plays. The way Jalen made everything seem like it was Tom's fault. Even when Tom wasn't doing anything wrong. But now it was confirmed. Jalen wasn't remorseful. She was annoyed that I'd finally stopped cooperating. And from that point on, Madison started talking. Not in a malicious way. Not in some campaign against Jalen. She just stopped covering for her. So when Jalen went around saying, "Tom left me for no reason," and people followed up with, "Didn't he find out about Nathan?" the lie started to wobble. When she claimed I was emotionally unstable, and someone said, "Didn't you once tell Alexa that Tom was boring and easy to manipulate?" the mask slipped. And when she said I was trying to ruin her career, someone finally asked, "Why would he need to, when you're doing that yourself?" It was like watching a dam break, slowly, one crack at a time. I started hearing things through friends of friends. People I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me just to say they believed me, that they were sorry, that they saw it now. One even said, "We all thought you were lucky to have her. Turns out she was just good at faking it." That one stung, because I had believed the same thing. For years I thought I was the one chasing up. The lucky one. The one who had to work hard to keep her. But looking back, it wasn't love she gave me, it was approval. Conditional. Performative. Measured. And the second I stopped living in a way that served her narrative, she rewrote me as the villain. The last straw came a week later, when Jalen emailed me directly. It was long. Paragraphs. Polished. Like she'd spent hours on it. She didn't apologize. She just explained. Or at least she tried to. She said she felt unseen. That she made mistakes out of loneliness. That her connection with Nathan wasn't romantic at first, but became complicated. She said she never meant to hurt me. And then, in the most audacious twist, she said, "I hope one day you'll see that I didn't betray you. I just finally prioritized myself." Prioritized herself. Like this was some kind of spiritual awakening. Like cheating and lying and gaslighting were just chapters in her self-help memoir. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need closure. I didn't need one last fight. I just needed distance. And I had it. Because by now, I'd already signed a lease on a small apartment 2 states over. I'd found work, remote contract stuff that paid better than my old office job. I'd furnished the place with secondhand furniture and 0 shared memories. There were no framed wedding photos, no cedar candles, no drawer full of her stuff. Just me, a used coffee table and a mattress on the floor. And yet somehow it still felt like home. Jalen kept telling people I was hiding. But I wasn't hiding. I was rebuilding. Quietly. Cleanly. Honestly. She had spent years creating illusions. Making everything seem just good enough to stay in. Just toxic enough to feel like it was my fault. Just safe enough to not leave. But now I wasn't in the story anymore. And that terrified her more than anything. Because without me in the narrative, she had no one to blame. I didn't destroy her. I didn't post the screenshot *TS, or share the video, or call her boss. I just stepped away, quietly. And without me around to play the fool, the truth leaked out on its own. People started seeing the cracks in her story. Friends who once defended her sent me messages like, "I'm sorry, man. I didn't know." A few even sent their own proof, things she'd said, things she'd done. I didn't ask for justice. I didn't need revenge. I just refused to carry her secrets anymore. I started a new job, found a quiet place to live. Nobody knew me there. For once, I wasn't someone's husband or someone's backup plan. I was just me, and that was enough. Her final message to me said, "You didn't have to humiliate me, but the truth? She did that herself. I didn't out her. I didn't expose her. I just stopped covering for her lies. I let her face what she'd built. I let go of the version of me that begged to be chosen." And when I ran into Alexa at a bookstore a month later, we didn't say much. Just smiled. Two people who had walked through the same fire and finally stepped out of the smoke. Free.